How are you feeling today, guys? Today I want to talk about a topic that was requested by some of our employees, and that is how to deal with mental health in the workplace. Let's talk. So when it comes to this idea of mental health in the workplace, this is probably something that people haven't been talking about for that long in terms of thinking through the culture of the workplace. You know, it's probably been something that's grown over the last couple decades where people think more and more, not just about work in the workplace, but mental health in the workplace as well. And I think especially going through the pandemic, a lot of these types of issues were raised more than ever because people had so much depression and anxiety, fear going through that time. And I think coming out of that time that the workplace has changed so much. A lot of people are working from home. A lot of people aren't working at all. A lot of people have different perspectives on what they expect from their work, and a lot of employers are struggling with how do we keep businesses going with all of these changes in employee mindset. And I think that mental health comes down to a big part of it, and as with most things, it isn't just a one-sided discussion. I think employers need to think through how do we address mental health in the workplace, and employees as well need to think about what does mental health look like for me in a place that is paying me to do a job. So let's talk about these things from both sides of the equation. First, I think that the business itself needs to make sure that it isn't the cause of mental health problems. There are so many different things that could go on in a workplace that could cause a lot of struggles for employees. There could be toxic workplaces. There could be places where people give their very best and the work never recognizes it. There's many types of things that I think that the business itself can do to make sure that employees don't wind up struggling with mental health types of problems. But what I find big picture is that so often it seems to me that to look in the mirror clearly and see the type of issues that they might be causing to employees. You know, work is one of the places where we spend so much of our time. Our identity sometimes is unhealthily wrapped up into what we do for work, and what happens between employers and employees could often be something that causes people a lot of mental harm. So I think when employers are really thinking through very clearly, what does it mean to create a great work culture? This isn't just a cliche, but it's really something that could deeply impact people's lives, either for good or for ill. So I think for companies, it's really a responsibility to think through how do we continue to improve our work culture so we're creating an environment where people don't just feel like they're surviving, but they're in fact thriving. On the other hand of the equation, I think that sometimes employees don't look at workplaces in a healthy way. I think that they're looking at it as a paycheck. I think they're looking at it as what can I get out of this for me? And they're not really thinking that the business is really the same as an individual. It has its ups, it has its down, it has money coming in, it has money going out, and businesses got to make sure that all those things are functioning properly to make it work as well. So I think that if employees are not thinking through about how to care for the business, how to care for clients, they're just thinking about themselves, that they're also going to be a big part of the problem, why a business might have an unhealthy work culture and why mental health might be suffering. So for me, I think it's so important that companies and employees are genuinely caring for each other. And when I say companies, I think for so many people that feels like just like an inanimate object, like a cup or a coaster or a table, but in reality, companies are made up of people like you, like me, that are supposed to work together to make it all happen, to do the best for clients, for customers, and to support each other to make sure that there's a great workplace where everybody feels supportive. And I think that in itself is going to go a long way to addressing mental health in the workplace. The second thing that I think is so important in addressing mental health in the workplace is building a culture of trust. Where I am here in the Philippines, there's a lot of joke about, chica chica and how Meritas everybody could be. Just kind of, it's like everybody's kind of gossiping a bit and, you know, just talking about this or that. And sometimes it's fun and joking, and sometimes real people are involved and real people get hurt. And depending on the culture where you live, where you're working, and depending on your work culture itself, there'll be a higher or lower culture of trust. So here, it's so important to me that employees feel that they could come and talk to me, or that they could talk to a direct supervisor about things that they're struggling with, and that that is okay, that they're allowed to be human. You know, these boundaries of work and boundaries of personal, you know, I suppose there's some merit in boundaries, but in real life, there's real people that are coming to work and they're bringing themselves as a whole person. And I think that they need to be able to be real with at least one person in the company that they could truly trust and talk to, that's going to be there for them, where they know that they're able to be who they are as a whole person, not just part of a person kind of faking it through work, because in reality, that's just not how real life works. People are who they are, and it's not like when people walk through a door that they're able to completely shut off everything that they're going through. But I do think that employees need to address that in a way that I'll talk about briefly. But building a culture of trust where people truly are loved, accepted, cared for who they are, even if they're struggling with mental health problems, is just so important. We all go through this in life, so why not just support each other in our time of struggle? Next, I think it's so important that employees also set boundaries within themselves when it comes to dealing with mental health in the workplace. It's not only the company that should be thinking through these things. People need to take personal responsibility for what they're going through in their own life. The workplace is not going to be a place that can holistically address mental health issues. Yes, I think work is one of the places where people spend a lot of time, and so the office needs to think through those things, but it's really the employee themselves that needs to address mental health issues. And I think part of that is setting clear boundaries in their mind. Yes, the whole person comes to work, but the employee also needs to think through with their job. They need to think through being accountable and responsible for making sure that they're taking care of the needs that they have day to day in the workplace. And I think part of that is making sure that they're taking care of themselves inside of work and out, getting psychological help if that's needed, talking to friends, family, supportive friends if that's needed, working through getting enough sleep and making sure that they're taking care of themselves, all of the things that are needed to make sure that somebody is taking care of themselves. I think part of it comes down to really making sure that when you step into the workplace, that you're making sure that as much as possible that you're keeping in check thoughts and feelings and struggles that you're having in your mind. I know for myself, if I am struggling with depression or anxiety or different challenges in my life, I could have so much that is going around in my mind, from this thing to that thing. It can make it hard to sleep. It can make it hard to focus. So believe me, I also really understand what it's like to go through these types of struggles. But I really need to say, I'm gonna push those things aside and I gotta focus on solutions instead of focusing on problems. And once I realize that those negative thoughts come in my head, I gotta consciously let go of those type of thoughts. For me, one of the things I do sometimes is use an app called Headspace, basically a meditation app. And I know if you haven't done meditation before, that sounds kind of like some weird mystical thing, but the Headspace app basically just makes you be aware of your breath, and it also makes you be aware of the thoughts that come in your head and out of your head as well. So what I really like about it is that it helps me to focus on one thing at a time. I'm just focusing on my breath. And one of the things that the app will kind of remind you is if you have other thoughts that come in your head, like I forgot to pay that bill, or what's new on Netflix, or whatever it is, the app just kind of reminds you to just push those thoughts out of your head and focus again on your breath. And it's so helpful, I think, when it comes to mental health to learn to focus on one thing at a time, because I think that one of the things that causes us so much stress and causes so much problems with trying to get work done in the workplace is we allow so many different thoughts that are unhealthy, that are unproductive, that make us feel terrible to keep floating around in our head. Before, I was an amateur photographer, and I really loved doing wildlife photography, nature photography. And one of the things that was so helpful about that is when I would look through the camera lens, I would just focus on one thing at a time. And so it was kind of another type of meditation where it helped me to learn to focus and to not think about anything else, just getting the right shot. And I think for all of us, this is something, whether we're struggling with mental health at the time or not, learning to focus on one thing at a time is something that could really help us be so productive and to overcome challenges when we have a lot of negative thoughts in our head. So stay focused on solutions, not problems. When you have negative thoughts come in your mind, acknowledge they come in and then push them right back out. I think this type of exercise will really help you when you're dealing with how do I focus at work when I just feel like my mind, how I feel is really dragging me down. Last but not least, I think dealing with mental health in the workplace means really ultimately creating a wonderful work culture that is interdependent, where people are responsible for doing what they need to do, but they're also able to depend on coworkers to talk things out, to work through things, professional or otherwise, a place where people really want to come to be able to grow as people, to be challenged, to be able to safely take risks, to be able to see the results of their work, not just with themselves, but with colleagues as well. And I think that if people are struggling in day-to-day life and able to come to a great workplace, that in and of itself is going to make a great difference to people struggling with different things. Of course, for some people, it's going to take more work. They're going to need to go to counseling and really work through things one-on-one outside of the workplace. But at the very least, I think it's so important that employers and employees are working together to bring about the best and to provide a really supportive, caring environment for everybody that's there. So, a little bit of a different topic for me, but this is one that employees raised that I hope will be helpful for some others as well. And as always, guys, would love to hear your comments below, and take care.